My name is Daniel Ruiz. I'm 38, a real estate agent living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. For the better part of a decade, I thought I was married to a woman named Clarissa Mae Thompson, or so she claimed. We met at a real estate networking event in Phoenix when I was 29 and she was 31, although she later admitted she lied about her age. She was magnetic, golden brown hair, sharp wit, warm smile, and eyes that could melt through glass. She said she was a freelance interior designer, and everything about her just clicked with me. She understood my long hours, my passion for property, my career ambitions. Within a year, we got married. It was a courthouse wedding, small, quiet, no family on her end. Estranged, she said. You wouldn't understand. I didn't push. I was in love. The first few years were decent. She traveled a lot, client work, she always said, but I was busy with work myself and didn't think too much of it. She'd vanish for weekends or sometimes weeks at a time, always with vague but believable excuses. A renovation project in Santa Fe, an urgent consult in Denver, a conference in Austin. She had receipts. She had photos. She even sent me texts and video calls from on-site. She was thorough, but over time, the cracks began to show. Our communication started to fade. The intimacy dried up. She was cold, detached, unreachable emotionally, and increasingly physically. I began to suspect infidelity. There was something in the way she'd avoid eye contact, how she flinched when I brought up our future or family, or anything deeper than surface-level conversations. Then came the lies I couldn't ignore. The Uber receipt from a city. She hadn't told me she was visiting. The credit card bill with dinner charges for two in a romantic restaurant, when she claimed she was at a conference. When I confronted her, she gaslit me. You're imagining things, she snapped. Maybe you're projecting. It wasn't worth fighting anymore, so I filed for separation. She didn't contest it. In fact, she agreed to meet me in court and finalize things amicably. No lawyers, no drama. At least, that's what I thought. It was a Wednesday morning, August 21st, 2024. The courtroom was quiet when I walked in. Clarissa was already there, sitting calmly, hands folded, dressed like someone going to brunch with her boss. She didn't even glance at me, just stared ahead. And then the door opened. One man walked in, then another, and another, and another. 5 men, all in their 30s or 40s, stood near the back, looking equally confused, and then increasingly horrified as they each laid eyes on her. The bailiff asked, "All parties to the Ruiz versus Thompson case?" One of the men said, "I'm here for my divorce from Clarissa Mae Thompson." Another echoed, "I'm here for my divorce from Clarissa Mae." My stomach dropped. All 6 of us, me included, slowly turned toward her. Clarissa didn't flinch. The judge, an older woman who clearly wasn't new to drama, ordered an immediate pause in proceedings and requested private interviews. Over the course of the day, the court learned the staggering truth. Clarissa Mae Thompson had married 6 men over the last 15 years, in different states, with different names. She used slight variations of her identity. Clarissa Mae, Clarissa Taylor, Clarice Thomason, and even Claire M. Toms. She had Social Security numbers under multiple aliases, operated bank accounts all over the country, and had spun an intricate web of lies with practiced ease. Each of us believed we were her only husband. She kept her story straight, her lies seamless. She used work travel to hop from man to man, city to city. Her job as a freelance designer was a perfect cover. No boss, no schedule, no need for consistency. We later found out that one of the other husbands, Aaron, a 42-year-old ER doctor in Colorado Springs, had hired a private investigator 2 months before and finally tracked down her double life. But he had no idea just how many lives she was living. He planned to confront her in court, but didn't expect company. Clarissa was arrested in the courthouse for bigamy, fraud, and identity theft. Her entire operation unraveled over the following weeks. FBI agents took over the investigation after it was revealed she had swindled at least 3 of the husbands out of substantial amounts of money, joint accounts, fake investments, even real estate deals. I was lucky. I hadn't given her access to much of my finances. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I'd always managed that part myself. Others weren't so fortunate. One man lost nearly $90,000. We all testified, sitting in that courtroom, seeing her in handcuffs. I couldn't reconcile the woman I loved with the criminal before me. How could someone live so many lies, so effortlessly? Was anything we shared real? Months had passed. She was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 12. She pled guilty to most charges to avoid a trial. The other 5 men and we've stayed in touch. Trauma bonds, I guess. We even started calling ourselves the Clarissa Six, a dark inside joke. Something to remind us that even the most convincing mask eventually slips. I returned to work. I'm rebuilding. But I don't think I'll ever trust as easily again. Because some people, they don't just lie. They live it. And I was married to one. After the sentencing, we all tried to go our separate ways. But in reality, none of us could completely let it go. Clarissa Mae Thompson, or whoever she truly was, had etched herself into our lives, and not just as a failed love story. She left behind confusion, grief, identity questions, and a maddening sense of betrayal that hung over everything. Our lives weren't just broken, they were rewritten. I threw myself into work at first. Real estate gave me structure. Properties made sense. Numbers, square footage, timelines. Unlike people, they didn't lie. But every time I walked into a house with hidden doors or extra rooms, I couldn't help but wonder, how many lives did Clarissa live in homes like this? Did she sit on couches with other husbands, sipping coffee, smiling like she meant it? I started seeing a therapist a few weeks later. Not because I wanted to, but because my best friend forced me into it after catching me drinking whiskey at 11 a.m. on a Sunday, sitting alone in an open house that wasn't mine. I was angry, not just at her, but at myself. How could I have been that blind? My therapist told me something that stuck. Con artists aren't just good at lying to others. They're exceptional at making you lie to yourself. I wasn't the only one struggling. Aaron, the ER doctor, took it especially hard. He'd not only lost money, but nearly proposed to Clarissa again just weeks before her cover was blown. He had a daughter from a previous marriage, and Clarissa had babysat her. That betrayal hit different. Michael, the software engineer from Portland, was quiet, eerily so. He never expressed anger, just numbness. At our first informal meetup, he calmly said, "I married a ghost." Leon, a retired Marine from Jacksonville, went ballistic when he found out. He had divorce papers ready that day, thinking he was just ending a short, ill-fated marriage. When he found out she was married to 5 other men, he nearly flipped the courtroom bench. He later told us he felt like a damn fool. Travis, a shy accountant from Austin, had started therapy long before any of us. Clarissa had emotionally manipulated him to the brink of a breakdown. He'd taken out loans in his name for her supposed business expansion. He was left with nearly $60,000 in debt. Julian, a quiet, bookish history teacher from Spokane, was perhaps the most tragic. He had been married to her the longest, nearly 9 years. He had just been waiting for her to slow down with her travel and finally settle. He'd been planning to adopt a child with her. He broke down crying the first time we all met over coffee. He said, "I thought I was a main character in her story. Turns out I was just a chapter, digging into the past." Curiosity turned into obsession. After the case closed, Julian and I dug deeper into her background. Old addresses, aliases, even classmates from high school. What we found was astonishing. Clarissa wasn't even her real name. Her real name was Margaret Greaves, born in a small town outside St. Louis. She had run away at 18 after her mother died, and her father was arrested for financial fraud. The pieces started making sense. She'd learned the con from childhood. Manipulation was survival. She'd bounce between cities, rebranding herself each time, marrying when the opportunity suited her, leaving when the lies threatened to unravel. She was a master of disguise, not with wigs or makeup, but with emotion, with persona. Every version of her was curated. For me, she was a passionate, driven creative. For Aaron, she was nurturing, family-oriented. For Leon, she was fierce and independent. For Julian, she was gentle and literary. Each of us met a different woman, and not a single one of them actually existed. A year after the court case, we were contacted by a producer in Los Angeles. She wanted to create a docuseries, The Wife of Many, featuring our story. Interviews, reenactments, psychological profiling. She said, the world needs to understand how this could happen and why. We declined at first. It felt exploitative. But slowly we changed our minds. Not for fame, but for closure. The process of telling our story honestly and openly to a broader audience helped us all in ways therapy alone couldn't. We spoke to other survivors of long-term deception, people whose partners had lived double lives, even triple ones. We weren't alone. We weren't crazy. And most of all, we weren't responsible for the actions of a master manipulator. Now, it's been 3 years since that courtroom morning when 5 strangers walked in and changed my life. Clarissa or Margaret, or whatever name she's using behind bars now, is still serving her time. Last I heard, she was requesting to teach art classes in prison. The irony isn't lost on any of us. As for the rest of us, we still meet once a year. We call it the unanniversary. We toast to freedom, to truth, to never ignoring the red flags again. Sometimes we laugh. Sometimes we cry. But most of all, we heal. Together. Because when the woman you love turns out to be 5 other men's wife too, you learn the hard way that love isn't always enough. But truth always shows up, even if it takes a courtroom full of husbands to deliver it.